We swapped it out. We have both. That's great. I never thought of that. That'd be really kind of funny. Switch them, your mind.
Yeah,
How do we never think of these things?
I know. I don't think about
Hello.
it. I'm the queen of having great ideas, but it's just too late to do them.
Right. Hey, we should do an episode of the Backpack Show.
You think? Well, I think first we should thank our sponsors who enable us to do the Backpack Show. How about
Well,
that?
never before the credits. Do we ever do it before the credits?
No.
I mean, look, watch this. Castos.online, StreamYard. This one, that one, pre-search.
Go to
Um,
cbrogan.me/StreamYard
all right.
if you want to do a show like this one.
Oh, you know what? cbrogan.net/StreamYard. I've got to change the thing, but I had to change it all because cbrogan.me finally got taken away from me.
Oh, no. Did it really?
I broke something,
Like
so
Christine Brogan was finally like, I need this. .me to me.
I can't tell you. It's even worse. Backpack Show.
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzrow from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gorgone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show. Very
Every time I
happy
think
birthday.
about changing the openers, I can't because I love them. I love every
I
person in them.
sometimes want to slather in even more, like make the opener like 10 seconds longer just for 10 more people.
Now, whose
Happy
birthday is
birthday,
it?
Leslie.
Yeah, the whole show would be the opener.
Leslie's 44 again, and maybe, I don't know, she could be younger. Hello to my father and my mother.
Hello.
Sam Morrell was being interviewed by Dave Letterman on Dave Letterman's new show on Netflix, and he said something about I passed my biological father in the street. Because my friend said something about, oh, how do you get along with him? He goes, do you think I'd call him my biological father if I did? And I went, I call my dad my biological father.
You too.
29 again, Leslie. Oh,
It is very indelicate to say a woman's exact age like that. Just put it out there.
I think, go the other way. A really long time ago, Marsha Collier said, when she hit her next like 0 birthday, like, whatever that was going to be, like, we don't know. She said she was going to push it ahead 10 years. And that way she said, I look damn good for this, Like, she was 10 years back.
I like to do that to people as a joke and be like, oh, she's such a special person. She's turning 50 this year. She'll be like 32. And everyone's
Nice.
like, whoa, yeah.
Nice.
If they don't know me, they think I'm serious. And so there will be someone that's like, hey, happy 50th. That's a big year. Wow, you look damn good. And they're like, what? Just
Make it better.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd talk a little bit about some of the changes in our businesses over the last year or so. I mean, you have a new job where you're doing something completely different than this, where you make a video show.
Make many shows,
Oh, yeah.
among other things.
Yeah, I mean, you have other jobs, which is like
Mhm.
write the things about the shows. And
Well, what I was thinking was that you said earlier this year that that everything you knew about marketing, everything you used to do, you sort of changed your way of thinking when you started to do work with Appfire and Randall Ward, and like how much you're learning from that experience and the sea change there. So I thought that'd be interesting to talk about. I don't
that's
feel
accurate.
tardy. You're not. Hey, Dean, you arrive always exactly when you mean to.
All right. So listen, before we do that though, I did definitely want to get over to Frank Cam because we have to check in on Frank.
Okay.
I think you can see him
Aw.
even better. That's Frank.
Aw. Hi, Frank. I love it. I love it with sound.
Yeah, except so we're getting the sound from outside the cage, so we don't even get the good leaf crunching sounds.
Aw.
So Julie Hutchings, pet lizard, Frank.
I love Julie Hutchings. She wrote the Harpy books, and I got to take a peek at the third one before it's like officially out. And I was such a nerd. I was like, nobody talk to me. I'm going to be reading this book all weekend long. I read it on my little phone and everything. Like I was into it. So
Wow.
I was ridiculous. I'm a Julie Hutchings super fan. Read the Harpy,
Nice.
everyone.
Nice. Hi, Chloe. So talking about the marketing thing, so I should start by saying that Appfire sells software. We sell software in a B2B kind of a setting. We have a marketplace kind of environment where people can come and buy it from a marketplace. And we have channel partners who we sell through, which is, a company comes along and somebody will say, we want to convert our bank to digital, transformation, like we've been hearing all about. Can you do that? And these partners go, sure. One thing we'll install is this thing called Jira, and they'll go, cool, does it do this thing? And then they'll look around at the plugins that companies like my company make and say, oh, yes, it absolutely does that thing. And they just add the plugin to the pile. So we sell sort of a really backfield kind of a product. It's like a BASF said in the 80s, we don't sell anything that you're particularly familiar with. The thing that we sell makes your thing work better. And so that was kind of interesting.
Like you could use it every day, use an AppFire app and not realize it.
Yeah. 55% of the Fortune 500 use one of our apps and don't know it probably. So that said, and even funnier still is like, we're the biggest vendor in this particular ecosystem, of which the parent company's name is Atlassian. Well, nobody knows what Atlassian is either. Like they're this little Australian company. So we're kind of unknown. So what I was going to say about how that applies to marketing and all that is I have watched so much marketing go nowhere and do nothing. I've watched all kinds of email marketing, flounder around and not see any kind of a bump in any sales. I've watched everything but the kinds of marketing that is more embedded into systems. So product-led growth kind of stuff, flywheel stuff, anything that's going to like really move. Like if you can make the trial work better by making the install process better and making the first, implementation work better, then you don't have to talk about, gee whiz, let's talk about the product features versus this other thing. You don't have to write battle cards. You don't have to do all this stuff. So I have really turned a corner on marketing. And one of the things Colin Puckett, who works with me, he said, the way he wrote it was his definition of B2B marketing these days is anything that makes sales easier. So that's it. Like it begins and ends in, will this help someone make a purchase? So for instance, you sell or you're part of the business is to create videos that help people better understand how to use a bunch of our products.
It's like Michael Visdos, try selling the thing, Scrum and Agile mindset that powers your thing, right?
Oh my gosh, for sure what he's saying. I mean, we have an agile process with planning poker and all that kind of stuff. And it's one of those tricky ass things to sell because you're like, we basically come in and say, remember how you said you were going to do agile and you didn't really? I mean, that's our best sales method right now. But you're seeing that too, right? You're seeing that in the kind of stuff you're creating for video.
Yeah, there's a lot. So for one thing, the end users may or may not ever hear of us, like of AppFire, of Atlassian. They just need to do things every day and they go into their daily project management software and do their things every day, right? So within that universe, there's a lot of concerns they have that the people who make the purchasing decisions about software never consider either. So it's like that's kind of where I live for the most part. The content that I create is the kind that people have questions about, like what's planning poker? What even is that? What's it for? How do I do it? So you put that out there, and then somebody with that question is going to be the end user of the product, right? So it's like ask your doctor about AppFire, basically. Get them in the door, help them, give them free, helpful, relevant information that relates to stuff we have. It's not rocket science. It's reasonable. But I've learned that once you get down into that and you start to learn more about the questions people have, you learn more about what we do that fixes those problems. It's a really interesting way to learn about products that's so much better than looking at like a website or a catalog. It's like, oh, we actually can fix that. Like you need to send the same message every time you close like a support ticket every single time. And instead of writing it fresh every single time, we can have like a canned response that goes out. There's an app that does it. That'll save you like 15 hours a week. Damn, that's actually really cool. So that's how I'm learning. And I love learning. So I'm kind of like reverse. It's like osmosis, I'm just steeped in it to the point where I'm learning it. But that's what I'm doing. I'm doing that kind of content that brings people awareness of the fact that there is a problem. We know something about it, and then eventually can help solve.
So detractors come along and they say, well, Kerry, I don't know why you're the person running these shows, given that you're not any kind of subject matter expert. How come you're on there talking about things from the point of view of like a monkey who's just showed up on the set? And I want you to address that because the views on those episodes are higher. The less you know about the product, the better the viewing numbers seem to match. So talk about that for a
Well,
second.
I mean, I'm a proxy for the people watching, right? Now, maybe they know something about Agile. They sure know something about, like, say, software development. They may not know about planing poker specifically. Like, if it's everybody's first day on the job sometime, right? That's how I come to it. But I also bring to it this my technical skills and whatever for running a show, and for understanding that you've got to keep things focused and on track so that people are getting the information they need and that they expect to find. I find a lot of times I'll want an answer to a question and I'll go and look at a podcast or something like that. And it'll start the first 10 minutes are like nothing at all to do with the question. And then they sort of circle it. And then maybe like 20 minutes in, you get to the actual question. It's no good. All my shows are 10 minutes. There is no time for fluff. Like, here's the question we're going to answer. Here's the person who's going to answer it, off and running. And every question I have after that is directly relevant to the main thing people are expecting. So I come to it with a different perspective. So I'm not assuming a lot of knowledge, which I think is good. It makes it more helpful. And I transcribe every episode. So all my ignorant, dumbassy questions are right there in the transcript, but so are the valuable, helpful answers. So I guess that's why you almost have to keep it light. It can't be purely like a white paper read aloud on video, because, like, who's going to watch that?
Nobody I know. One of the things that I find is, so for instance, I had the great opportunity to hang out with a channel partner of ours. So they sell our products to end customers. Now the end customer never knows who we are, and it doesn't even matter for anything. But what I find is, if I can sell sort of a feature, you've heard this in the past, like sell benefits, not features or whatever. If I can sell something that people can really click to, then it seems to stick with them for a little bit. So I'll give you an example of that. We sell a tool called Configuration Manager. This one happens to be for Jira, which is the Atlassian work environment. Configuration Manager does what it says on the tin. You know, if there's a setup and a configuration of the software, we take a snapshot of it. So I said, well, in a lot of ways, this is like when you play video games and you can hit save before the next part of the adventure comes on. And you're getting nervous because the bad guy's there and you don't want to mess up. And you're like, I don't know if I'm taking the right choice right now. So you hit save again. You hit save again. So I said CMJ is kind of like a grown-up version of the save button in video games. So you can see, you hit that button as many times as you want and then make the scary change and then see if you need to go back to what you saved. And so I think that that's a great opportunity. Jonathan says I'm a chronic saver. I mean, there are video games where if they disabled the save, that would be scarier than a jump scare. So I talk about that in meetings, but you know what I don't talk about is I don't talk about anything that would go in an email campaign. I don't talk about, I mean, I almost never talk about social in a B2B marketing environment, except to say that's a way for people to see it. Like Colin Pluckett was pointing out the fact that people watch so much video on LinkedIn.
Yes.
People watch an inordinate amount of video. And you were just doing stats on that. You were finding that even though these shows only launched a couple months ago, there's thousands of views. Talk about that.
6,600 plus. So launched the show with the Hub, my first show, in March. So like mid-March, early April, you started to see more episodes coming out. I always launch with 5 to 10 episodes of any new show, because if people like what they see, they're going to want to see more, and they're not going to want to wait a week to do it. So start with enough that people can kind of browse their way through, see the quality of what you offer, and go from there. And so it helped that when we launched, I had, I think, 15 episodes of the project management show already out. We're up to almost 30 now. And I went through, this is maddening to have to do, but if you want to see how each episode performs, like, you actually have to click through in LinkedIn and look at the analytics for each one. But LinkedIn powers the majority of views on the episodes. Now, views are just like, I always say this, like, take it with a grain of salt, but views are great. They're not the end objective. Obviously, people are like, well, how does it sell software or whatever? Well, it's a long game. It's like a long relationship that you're building with people. And it starts with answering their questions and being helpful. And then they're like aware of you, which they weren't before, in a way that's positively associated with helping them get work done, right? So it's like very early days, I realize, but that's where it starts. And because the shows live in the Hub, which is our content hub, for all things relating to Atlassian. So we have AppFire content, and we have content from across the industry that we index and kind of surface for people. Because, finding a white paper on Jira migration is actually, it's not that easy to do. So we kind of find the best ones and help surface them for people in addition to doing our own shows and things like that. But it lives there. So, start with traffic, start with more helpful content, start with making it easy for people to use what you have and get more out of it. And like, it's not that hard. Like, they keep coming back. But when I went and dug into the views, I was able to see who performed better on LinkedIn versus YouTube is really interesting, and which conversations people listen to versus watch. Because I went and checked the downloads and stuff for our audio podcast version as well. And that was really interesting to see which episodes did better there. It's like the topics people want to listen to audio only about versus the ones they'll hit play on LinkedIn are a little bit different. So like a little bit more advanced on LinkedIn will get more traffic. It's very interesting. Like, you can actually, surprisingly, you can cover about any level of difficulty in 10 minutes in a conversation. You just have to narrowly focus your conversation. And that's kind of where I come in, because I have an instructional design background and stuff like that. So I can keep it tight and focused.
Carol points out something important too. Something about marketing software is that you often have to speak to multiple stakeholders. The user, the decision maker, often very different people. Very true. One thing that, for instance, one of the things that we're trying to slip in there a lot more often. It was funny, again, in that meeting with the partner, I said, I don't know how to say this part I want to say, so I'm just gonna brag, and you're gonna decide whether or not you want us to brag. And I said, our company has an entire team of security guys. So our software is being run through a security team. Our software is being run through a legal team. Like, we're not making this like in a garage with 3 guys and a couple testers. There's 620 something people now supporting that product. So you're not buying the app, you're buying peace of mind. You're buying the end user license agreement. You're buying the fact that we can make your compliance work amazingly better. We could do great stuff with GDPR and HIPAA and all these other compliance statuses. And also we're ISO certified. And then you talk about the features in the app. That gets tricky too, because like what Carol's saying is that the end user's like, I don't care. Does this actually get me what I want? Carol makes really complicated software that runs on like the Excel platform. And even if she ported it to other types of apps, all that they're really going to want to know is, can I get the thing I want out of this? And if the answer is yes, then they're going to feel good about it. So curious some of your thoughts on that.
Revisit video on LinkedIn. No. So when I explain what we do to people, I first have to explain Atlassian, right? Like, to like my family, friends, whatever, people that are like, what are you doing these days? I'm like, okay, well, there's a company called Atlassian that makes big honking project management software programs for like development teams, help desks, your IT department, your agile marketing team. When you've got a big organization and a lot of people that need to work together in different teams to get things done, they have software for that. But then there's always something more. You want it to integrate with this other thing you have, or you want it to do this thing that it doesn't automatically do. And like, they can only bake in so much before everything breaks. So that's where we come in. So I explain that to everybody. And we have more than 200 different apps that do things. So you can get everything you want. But when it's like, the end user only knows what they want to do. I mean, that's exactly right. So not only the end user knows what they want to do, the purchaser knows maybe what the end user wants things to do, maybe. But then partners and vendors and people who put together the packages for them, they're the ones who are like, okay, I want to put together a thing that will work for this team. I don't want to find myself scrambling, after an outage to find some developer in like a faraway place who's on vacation that week and I can't get them. So what's great is that the hub kind of reflects this too, but what's great is that AppFire, you get the whole global team behind it of developers and some of the smartest people I've ever met who are just making things and fixing things and making things better constantly. And we have developers on our teams making our stuff better all the time. So it's like, you want to know what your end users need. We've got a ton of end users like work for us. So what I love about it as a content person is I can go directly to people within AppFire who work on things and they mirror the experience of our end users. And that helps me figure out like what kind of things we even need to start with. So there's just so much here. I mean, I've got subject matter experts I can use to make master classes that show people how to do what they want to do with the apps that we have. It's like pretty powerful stuff when you're thinking about not sales enablement exactly, but like supporting your customers, which is the job, right? You don't just sell it and walk away. Not with something like this. Like if they don't use
Right.
it, they're just not ever going to touch it again and they'll stop renewing it. It's like you need to become part of their daily life, whether they know your name or not.
I
And
feel like
that's
there's
what I do.
something different with regards to master classes too, which is that you could buy product material. I mean, you can get product material, product marketing material, but it's not the same thing. Master class says you've got this thing, or you're really close to buying this thing, and you want to walk through some now what like how's it actually going to run. So Leslie was saying, for instance, they get a lot of sales pitches for all kinds of software in the school systems and whatnot, but it all comes down to knowing, is it something that's actually going to be effective to what we need. So if they're
Right.
looking at benefit software or scheduling software, the mountains of things, it's going to ask, you're going to have to ask some really tricky questions like, can I throw in a sub for a day? What other kind of documentation is it going to auto prompt me to get? Like, how are you going to make my job work easier at every
Yeah.
turn?
And the salespeople, like if you have people that are actually in sales or people who are trying to put together like a presentation to tell you what you're going to be able to do, it's like a box. Like, can I do this thing? Yes or no? Check this box, right? Even if it's yeses where you want yeses, there's questions. You still have questions, right? So that's what I love about master classes. For me, it's like when I was practicing law, I never wanted experts that like were researchers in an ivory tower that could tell you about theoretically about things. I wanted mechanics, people who will pop the hood, tell you what's in there, like what's going on, diagnose the problem. I mean, that's the kind of expert I've always wanted. And I use the same for these. So they're master classes, but it's not like some kind of like they're doing a thesis and reading it out loud. It's like they're in the software showing you how to do things, showing you code.
Right.
And that's all it is. It's like it's helping people, and I love helping people and I love
Sure.
learning. So those two things, it's like crack for me basically, my job.
Carol asked a question: do these apps have long sales cycles, and are they enterprise-wide implementations? Most of the apps that we sell, like by number of apps, most of them are not. Most of them are, you can take a credit card, wipe it through the machine, go, oh, I got the app, and
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
just
they sell them
running.
in a marketplace,
Yeah,
like the
just like
App
you do on an
Store.
iPhone store. Yeah,
Yeah.
iPhone App Store.
Mhm.
We do have Big Picture, which is a massive enterprise product. We have a couple other products that are much larger in scale that do take a lot of work to put them in. And
You can
and
try though, if you all our cloud apps are free for teams of up to like, I wanna say it's 10 users. So
10, I think.
yeah, so you could go try them for yourself and see kind of what they can do and what their capabilities like. They're super scalable, but it gives us a lot of things to
I
talk
enjoy.
about. Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Jonathan asked a question: any thoughts on selling to organizations that don't have comparable software? I find it's easy to pitch a better replacement for something already in place, but like,
Mm.
can you pitch naked?
So that's like, okay, so that's potentially problem unaware, if you want to call it that, right? Like they don't even realize they have a problem. They're happy spending a lot of time tracking projects through many different kind of one solution things. Like I have Docs, Google Docs, right? Or something, or a Trello board, maybe, but like nothing more sophisticated than that. So that's problem unaware. And a little bit, that's like where some of the content that I create will come in, because you'll have a question like, hey, why are stakeholders syncing all my projects? What do I do about that? And then you start to realize, oh, maybe I'm not, I need to do more. I need to think about it in a more sophisticated way and organize things. And then you start to realize, well, that's kind of hard to do with a Google Doc. So like, how am I going to make this happen? Then you become a little more aware that maybe there's a solution to the problem. And not even like, I don't mean solution like a specific product. I just mean you get the idea that maybe something you could put in your technology stack would be of help. And like that, so this takes a while, right? But yeah, so is it easier talking to people who are problem unaware than people who already have something? I'd say it's the same. It's the same level of difficulty, but it's a different challenge. So problem unaware, you've got to be like, hey, things could be like way easier for you. So it's a conversation. If they've already got something, then you're dealing with they're kind of some people can be kind of entrenched. Like I already spent 18 months getting this up and running. I really don't feel like pulling up stakes right now. So it's either way you can win, just a different conversation.
But for instance, with our product, Big Picture, that is one of our big selling points to other people. There's a product called ClickUp that is a competitor to Big Picture, and ClickUp says this: We will show you every view of every part of your company's information just as soon as you convince them to leave their favorite software apps and use our app that they've never used. And once everybody's using this new strange app that they've never used and maybe doesn't have all the features of the ones that they just used for the last 5 years, then maybe we can get you something to work from. What we say a big picture is, oh, you like Slack? Cool. You like Teams? Awesome. That boss uses only email and doesn't even look at Slack or Teams. We got you. It's okay. We worked with that guy, right? So you could put any interface you want. You want to use Project over here, Trello over here, Asana. We use Asana. We use Asana. We use Trello. We use Microsoft Project. We use Google Docs, spreadsheets, Confluence. So there's all kinds of tools in our stack as well. And then with Big Picture, we take all of those in, and then kind of, if you need reporting, we spit that back out. If you need unified kind of in document of record, that's built into that. So that's how we do it. So we just took a different path. So to Jonathan's point, another way, we could say, you probably have tools that you already love. Why don't you keep using them? We'll just plug them into this thing. And
it comes from the same place. So it comes from the same place. It comes from wanting to help people do what they want to do. That's where it all comes from. That's what Big Picture is about. Hey, they're doing it kind of one way and they want to do more of that and scale it and maybe make it work with other teams in their organization that don't do it that way. They want to make their life easier. That's what that is. Just like the content we're creating, there's documentation for some of these things, like not just like high level, what does it do feature stuff, but I mean like the real nerd stuff when you've got to dig in and figure out how to migrate stuff or how to integrate stuff. The documentation for that can be hard to find. So it's like, boom, we put it right on the top. Everything we do in terms of content, but also product design, like you're talking about, is making people's lives easier, which I think comes back to like the company at AppFire, the core principles. One of them is be human. You're not going to design something horrible that is a pain to use if you're thinking about the humans on the other side trying to use it. So that's one reason I love being here, is just how much thought goes into everything we do.
I feel that way. I also like just the fact that, we're working with like so many different kinds of minds and so many top minds. And, there's a lot of autonomy built into how we work, but there's also the sense that everyone's trying to plug things together and make it all click. So that's nice too. I like the feeling that, you could sort of run with the ball quite a distance. And sometimes you bump into things. Sometimes if there's not a absolutely locked up solid process, someone, some human can interfere with that process. But I think even that over time, if you report that or you communicate that and you start to say, hey, look, 4 of you are doing it one way and 1 of you is doing it a different way, I think eventually everybody can kind of come to an agreement on certain things. I feel like in general, though, if we stay loose and stay as flexible as we can and keep things moving, then collaboration is going to work better. We're going to help people make work flow the way they want it to go. I mean, it's just a big opportunity.
Hey, you're so right, though, that yes, I know, but you're so right that marketing in this context is very different than a lot of people have experienced before. Like I taught other people marketing, right? From like, I don't know, 2013 or right up until last August. Like that's what I was doing, was teaching other people more. Actually before that, but anyway, in colleges. But I mean, in terms of training, and very few of them were in this type of environment. We're like, yeah, we had a lot of B2B people, but it was like, we sell one thing. We sell 2 things and we're B2B. It'd be like legal malpractice, insurance we'll sell. That's what we sell. Or we sell timekeeping software for attorneys or for accountants or something. Like 1 thing, 2 things. This is like 200 things. So when you're thinking about it that way, you realize, and you're selling to partners mostly, right? As opposed to some end users, but like the big majority of it are people trying to put together something that will work for your end user. It's not the end user directly. So when you look at it that way, you realize, yes, the same principles apply as far as content, needs to be helpful, needs to be relevant. You need to write everything, even documentation, with the reader in mind. You can't just be broadcasting what you want to say. Nobody cares. You got to make sure you're careful about how you present it for maximum knowledge transfer, right? All that stuff all applies. But there's so much else that's different. I think it throws some people. Like it would be a huge lift to try to do what we do for like 1 app. To try and do that for 200 at once would be kind of nuts. So you got to build like a kind of an ecosystem that sort of feeds itself with content, which is what we're doing. We
That's the
have
goal.
partners that contribute, and obviously I work on it, but I'm just one person. But we have partners that contribute. We have guests that come on. We're going to get some tech writers to help turn content into more content, more just digestible bits. It's a different environment, but at the core, I think it's the fact that be human. That's what works for content everywhere and always, and for product development too. So I feel like that's what makes me feel like I'm at home.
Cool. Back to my grumpy old man on the state of marketing in general.
Oh dear.
I do continue to believe what I came out of that dream with, which was that marketing for marketing's sake is out the window. All the fluffy stuff, all the kind of events for event's sake, all the stuff where you really can't measure it especially well. I think digitizing, I think growth loops, I think all of this stuff where we're doing demand gen and all that SEO, SEM, I think that's huge. I think it is Dave Davies' world and we're just borrowing it. I think that there's a lot of ways in which, what Colin said, makes selling easier is the really only thing. Because, if I look at, I don't want to watch a TV show about configuration manager, but I do want to know it's out there. Like I want to know that there's a solution like that. And so I tried to get a marketing piece made that just was like as simple and dopey as possible about explaining why you buy that. And it was a little teeth pulley to get. And I didn't really get what I wanted ultimately. And I kind of abandoned it because it's like, it's too much work to explain this to somebody. Like I could just make one. I think what's going to happen with marketing, I don't know. What? I'm seeing another thing. I'll just throw this on top of it and say that this relates. I think another thing that's happening with marketing is that companies are getting tired of it. Companies are, CEOs in some study I just saw now consider the CMO the fourth most important senior person on their team. So now, I think they threw chief HR or chief people officer over CMO, knocking them down a notch. Chief operations is higher up, and often a chief product or chief digital officer. So it's very.
Where's chief of staff in that file?
Oh, nowhere. Chief of staff is still such a nascent job title.
Yeah,
I get invited to those roles every single day, but I don't even look at them because they're just all fluffy jelly. And I've built my role to do what it needs to do. One thing it needs to do is shake up, marketing teams and say, you can't do it the way you've been doing it. I'm so sorry. You got to create a whole new lane because people aren't buying the way the marketing school books taught you to buy.
No, and I think like what you're saying, so if you've got a complicated product, because I used to hear this all the time, by the way, when I was teaching people B2B marketing, I would constantly get, our product is boring, our product is dry, our product isn't sexy. I'm like, oh, but if you need to bring data from one program into another, like you have to do it. It's critical to your job for reporting and stuff. And it's going to take you a month to code stuff that will make that happen. And we have an app that you hit a button and it pulls it in, and like 3 minutes later, you're done. That's sexy. Sorry. It's one of those things that people will be like, hey, if you didn't know, now you know. You have to be in the situation before you care. But if you're in that situation, boy, do you care.
For sure. I mean, I had asked a couple questions about one of my new favorite tools, CMJ. And I was saying for configuration management, I said, can you give me a sense of how much time you spend in that particular, task about sort of saving and then reinstalling and building basically replicating a configuration. So if you've got a software environment over on this machine and that machine breaks, what does it take to put it together in someplace else? Just the bigger version of that. And they were like, oh my gosh, that could be 15, 20 hours. And it depends on the guy's skill set, their knowledge. They might be going and looking through some documentation for it. I said, yeah. So what if I swap that out with 2 clicks? And they're like, well, sometimes things change. And I'm like, yeah, what if I had a thing that gave you a report before you actually committed and you could micromanage the changes before you hit commit? Oh. And I said, and what have you done?
Oh,
you make a new best version of that, you save it. And then you can say, I'd like also a QA version where you pull the credit card data out or some of the more important sensitive data out. You just say it right away. Can I have this new config, but with a QA version? Sure. Click, here you go. And it's done. And it's not asking your QA department, who tells you 15, it'll be 10 to 12 days or whatever.
No.
So
There's
to
directly
me,
trackable benefits to things like
right.
that, right? Like you were saying, marketing has to be measurable and trackable. You can measure it, right? Like you can measure it in terms
Yeah.
of people who close after the free trial, right? If your content is helping them figure out what to do, they're going to close at a greater rate after the free trial. Or maybe your support tickets go down, or maybe the calls are, about more complicated problems or something instead of the easier, more basic things. Like it is possible. But leave a little bit of room for magic too, because there are people who never heard of you before, would never have bought from you, that will find you through your content. And are they going to remember, like, oh, all this time ago, I wondered if PMP certification was worth it, so I watched a show? No, maybe they won't. And it doesn't matter. It's just so you have to leave a little room for magic in your
For sure.
content, but there's still so much data that you can pull from.
I mean, that's what I love about your PPM show, though, too, is because a lot of times I was a project manager. So when I watch that show, it tends to ask questions that maybe people who aren't project managers or haven't been for a little while, or maybe haven't ever been but have thought about it, can ask, what's with the old Gantt chart? That guy was so cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs about Gantt charts. It was
He
great.
was really feisty.
He was in.
He did not like Gantt charts.
No. So it was, it was really worth watching. And I mean, I swore I would never touch a Gantt chart again, which is why I like Trello. But again, if you're in some big old company and they're like, no, you must use Asana, then a lot of times you don't get a choice. So your videos were like, well, you always have a choice. You could do this other app and it would work fine for them. Anyway.
It's just a difference. It's the difference between having, like, I don't know how to call it, but having somebody go on and try to do a video series for you where they try to explain a topic. Could they do it? Sure. Does it help to have somebody else there with who comes? I'm more closely aligned with the PMMs, let's say, than I am with like the developers who create apps for them. So I'm able to ask questions that, will help bring their attention and expertise to questions that maybe they haven't even considered yet, or, maybe explain something a little more clearly. I just come to it like, hey, it's everybody's first day sometime, or like it's everybody's first time hearing the term planning poker sometime. So, or even Gantt chart, like they might hate them, but maybe they don't feel comfortable saying so. Now I have, they have reasoning behind the next time they say, hey, let's try something else. So anyway.
That's my ongoing joke with the senior leadership team is for things with finance with Alex Triplett, our CFO, because he forever is saying some new term that I've never heard. And just when I
don't give away any trade secrets, you'll
get my hand on some term, he'll be like, oh, well, this term. And I'll be like, oh. So,
I ask
and a lot
all
of
the
times,
time.
A lot of times it could even be something where like it sounds way cool. And then you hear what it really is. You're like, oh,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
That means the last 12 months. Oh.
All the time. So,
So,
I'm learning a ton from I do a show on ITSM as well. So it's like IT service management, like help desks on the one hand, or literally IT on the other, like for provisioning new employees and stuff like that. It's pretty complex stuff. When you get down to it, it's still about serving human needs, like protecting customer data while you're getting feedback, or like what even is, enterprise service management versus ITSM, right? It's like there's questions. And I love getting the answers to them. And I have no problem standing in, as somebody who's like a complete rube because it helps somebody else. I'm here for it. Like I'm totally here for it.
Right.
I'll do that
Carol
all day long.
Chloe and I are building a kind of sales and marketing engine that is doing exactly that. So that's kind of cool.
Nice.
Data wrangling and the like. So that's awesome.
That is awesome.
To the wizards of wizardry. Right there doing
I will watch Chloe's videos all day long. It's the accent.
Mm-hmm. I'll watch the videos. I'll watch the explainers. I mean, give them all to me. All right. We've come to that.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
Come on, it's her birthday. You have to.
She's going skydiving and then going to go watch Maverick. I feel like that's in the wrong order.
Maverick is so good. What do you mean it's in the wrong order?
Right?
Why? Well, yeah.
Then you're all jazzed. You're like,
that's true. All the adrenaline and stuff. Yeah, that's maybe true. Yeah.
Hey. Hey. What goes in your backpack?
Oh man. Humility. You can't do the job I do if you want to come to it looking like an expert in all the things, because there's no way in hell it's going to work, and you won't create content that's worth anything to anybody. So humility is what I bring.
Humility. So I have, I put co-create as one of my 3 words for 2022, and it's been serving me magically well. Co-create means what am I going to bring for energy and whatever to an interaction? How am I going to co-create that thing? But now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go even past how true. Not as good as me. We should fight about that. I'll try here. What goes in the backpack is basically I want to help co-create for both sides. I want to make sure the other person understands what the optional outcomes could be. So now I'm going in with my presumption of the outcomes, with my very here's how I want to do it good for both of us. But now I give them a sense of what I'm thinking too, so they can try to bring some energy back to that. So not only am I trying to do their job and my job, but now I'm trying to give them a way to do my job and their job on top.
We're having the best time ever.
Yeah, it's the best. What a company. What a bunch of things to do. We get to work with really smart people. Would you say that like one person you don't like to work with, would you say that that's
Well, that's how it goes sometimes. I still have to see you the next day.